welcome to Practising Program again C, in which we continue to make Cinera's config file parsing thing. We weren't sure if we would have a stream today, because it's Saturday and we wouldn't want to clash with Handmade Hero, and we weren't sure if we were going to have a stream on Sunday either. But we were reasonably sure that we would mull over the stuff last night that we'd done in the previous stream to see if we could figure out a better way of doing it, or if something would occur to us. And something did occur to us, which is that I think we're actually doing it in a reasonably okay way. Right. I think, did we call it parse tree? What did we call it? I think this is the function. Scope tokens, yeah. So right. So the situation we were in was we were going through all the tokens, and we were expecting identifiers at certain points. We were expecting assignment tokens at certain points. An assignment is just an equal sign. Can we see any of those? Maybe we're not printing one of those out. Expecting we expect semicolon at some point as well, yeah. So we had this whole notion of expecting tokens in order to establish the syntax, to establish syntax validity. And but the one thing that we're finding was that, ignoring this for now, because this is actually correctly finding that it's an invalid field. We want to preserve this capability, and we're just leaving that in there, so we've got some test stuff. The trouble was in this situation here, right? We're hitting a closing brace when we actually expected an identifier, and we're expecting an identifier in where we're doing that. If token is a token identifier. Oh right, yeah. So it's got to be this, right? This is just hard coded in here. Yeah, that's what that is. Now, I thought that because we were hitting this situation and we weren't handling this situation in our thing, I thought that we'd need to sort of rewrite this entire thing to sort of call itself, and to sort of parse out entire scopes in one go. But that ain't true. I kind of realised. I realised that all you really need to do is you just need to do another case. You need to say, let me just show you in the config, in the test config. So an assignment can be an identifier, an assignment, in this case it's a number, but it can also be a string, and then a semicolon. And then the next thing we could reasonably expect is an identifier, right? But here's the rub. If we're already in a scope, we've got our identifier, assignment, string, semicolon, right? We were sort of expecting an identifier to come next, but we've hit a semicolon, a closing brace. So when we're in a scope, or I mean at any point, honestly, it's not that we should be expecting an identifier. It's that we should be expecting either an identifier or a closing brace. So all you need to do is actually say this. What is it? Closing brace. Is that it? Yeah. Right, and if you see that token close brace, all you're doing is popping the scope back up to this guy's parent. That's all you need to be doing. And then you need to expect, well, I mean, you currently need to expect a semicolon, but I'm sort of thinking of scrapping that whole necessity, actually. Right, and then once you've done that, you can then expect after the closing brace, you can expect the next token to be either an identifier or a closing brace. Right, so I think I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to change the syntax so that we don't need to do, it's basically that, right? You just change this to be that, essentially. And then I think everything should still work okay. I mean, it's possible that I could remove the need to do that even. I think the only difficulty will be in this title list end thing. We'll need a way to actually say that if we see this identifier, it's not, you know, the syntax for that for a valid one of those is different from other things. So yeah, let's just propagate that change again to here. Now we should find that we do expect an identifier token in its type specs. So we've got close brace and then semicolon. Have we now? Where am I getting to here, actually? Let's just zero that, actually, just for a second, just to see where we're getting to. Yeah. And I think it's only in scope tokens that we even bother about the syntax. So we shouldn't need to have to change anything else because we're not even handling the closing brace yet. This is happening here. So we need the idea of scope trees themselves having a parent, right? And we also need each scope, so there's a couple of things. It's the scoping and making sure that we can actually pop back up to a scope's parent, so we can then continue to like pass into the parent's scope, if you know what I mean. See if we can explain that. So essentially it's like we're in the root scope all the way down to here, right? So the root scope, like the essentially the result, I mean I might call that tree, but it doesn't matter. These guys are going to be pushed on to this result. I mean, this result also is going to be the parent of it's going to be the current parent. But these guys are going to be pushed onto that parent. When we come to this support, right, we hit this opening brace. So we've got this open brace here, and what we do is we push scope onto the, well, we set the new parent, right? So we push a scope onto the root scope, and then we return the new parent, right? At that point, we've actually lost who this we don't currently store who this person's parent is, right? But we're going to be going into this scope, and then we're pushing on these guys onto the new parent. right? After we've done that, we need to get out of the scope. And then when we get to here, we're not supposed to be pushing this onto this parent. We should be pushing it onto the root parent, right? Who I've just mentioned that we lost. So, don't know if I explained it well enough, but essentially, all it means is that you just need to add to the scope tree its parent. Not 100% sure where you actually do that, and I don't know that it matters really. But all it's just a pointer to its parent. We need that, and we also need the other thing. So the first thing was the scoping, so we can make sure that we can actually, parse back up into the correct scopes. The second thing that we need is the type spec, right? Now I'm currently initializing essentially a single one of them. So I've got like this one type spec, one pointer to a type spec, right? And it's that thing that you just set. You just set that one thing to the current field, to the where is it? Where do you actually set that? Yeah, it's when you it's when you pass a new scope. So you come into this scope, and you need to pull in the type spec of the support, right? And just to show what I mean by that, it's like, well, where's the type specs? Support, right? So you need to pull in the type spec for the support, and the support. All this means is it just means that the support can contain an icon. See this here, and it can contain a URL. It can't contain a something, and a something it's not even an identifier at all. But essentially, all that type spec means is that you get these, and this true means that something is single. In other words, you're only allowed to. This thing can only contain one of them. So this icon, this second instance of icon, is I mean, it's syntactically correct, but this will yield a warning. It'll just tell you, look, you've set two of these. We're going to use the final one that you've set, but just be aware that you can only set one of them. Like, you don't get all of the icons aren't going to apply. In other words, we're not currently handling that. We haven't set that up in the new function. But here, when we set the type spec, we come in, we've only got the one pointer to it, right? So what will happen is, I think, I might just have to just quickly work through this. You set the type spec, and you set the type spec, so it's that single pointer. So that pulls in the support thing. A type spec, I should also mention that a type spec itself contains this copy type field, right? So for each field is going to be stuff like icon and URL, right? So ID is going to be icon or URL, depending on what it is. Then we've got a Boolean singleton and is set locally, right? So what that means, I think I might actually change that is set locally just to be is set. So all this means is we can only have one of them, which I said we can only have one. And this tells us if one of them is set. Now, if we only have the one pointer, we're going to lose this information, right? Or rather, this, I suppose we're not going to lose it actually, we're going to actually retain it all the time. You know, because you set this pointer to be the actual, it's in the actual type specs. So like, it's like the canonical things, right? When you do this get type spec, it gets it out of the actual type specs. It's not a copy. It is the actual, just the things that you initialize to startup. So what will happen is, if you come into this scope, you get this type spec, and remember you're pointing at the actual type spec in the canonical type specs. You come through and you pass, say you pass, come into this token string, and you find, I mean, you also need to do we even do the field as in spec? I do, yeah. So if type spec and current field is not in spec, I probably want to actually, I need to probably flip the logic of this, because I'll need a way to proceed if it is in spec, and sort of just make it so I can sort of loop a bit easier without, I mean, I'm not like, not too, what do you call it, dogmatic about go-tos and not using them. But I don't think that here is a case where I would necessarily need it, if you know what I mean. I think I should be able to just sort out these conditions such that you can actually just flow through them correctly. But what would happen is, you see it's current field in spec. If it's the icon, then yeah, it will be. And then what you would need to do is, you would need to set that guy's is set to be yes. You'd need to do that, right? But you would also need to check, is it a singleton, right? Now it's always going to be, they're always going to be a singleton, but when you apply when you see this field here, and you set is set thing to true, then essentially that's going to stick for all of the supports, right? Because you're pointing at the actual type specs thing, and whenever you see a support, you get the type spec from the actual thing. So rather than doing that, I think what I need to be doing is having each scope contain its own type spec, which in turn contains its own fields, and that scope is the only one that keeps track of whether a field has been set, essentially. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that in addition to this config type specs, or rather scope tree, in addition to this, you want this to contain a one of those, basically. And also that reset fields function probably won't be applicable anymore, because you're going to want to preserve this for each thing. So as you go into different scopes, they're getting their own type spec anyway. So I reckon I reckon that goes. Yeah, that was in the old function anyway. Past assignment. Yeah, which is not what I'm talking about now. In fact, this alt function is going to disappear. So I don't think that will have changed anything yet. I don't think, no. So we've got something, we've got the close brace, and we're expecting an equals. Should we be expecting an equals? Did I change enough to elicit that? So we've got the expect token here. Struct type value. If we have, oh right, so there isn't a point. It's not a pointer to it. That's unfortunate. Oh, so we don't need to check it. Current field is in spec. So what does that do? If we've got a spec, so we'll be passing a spec, and it's for the spec field count, right? So yeah, if that's zeroed out, we should be fine. Yeah, I think that should be all right. Incompatible type for argument. Is that should need to be a pointer to it? And then down here, maybe that. So that returns a pointer to a type spec, yeah. Which should be fine, shouldn't it? Oh, actually, maybe not, because a pointer to it. I think actually, you push the scope. I think maybe actually you want to duplicate the type spec actually. You know, because you don't want to be setting. Well, actually, no, you're dereferencing this, aren't you? You're dereferencing it, so it's not that you're actually setting. You're not setting this to point at the actual thing. You're dereferencing it, so I think that should be okay. The other thing that we did was pushing scope. We need to set the parent's parent to be the incoming guy, essentially. So it's the parent. Bit weird, but it's essentially this, isn't it? Is that right? He's sending in a parent. You want to be getting back the pointer to the final dude. Parent tree count -1. I think that's more like it. That's what we want. So setting the current trees, the new parents, the new parent's parent, to be equal to the current parent, the incoming parent. I think that's what you need. And like I say, I think we're setting the type spec correctly there as well. So we're getting some more stuff in here. Init type spec, so get type spec. So it doesn't like so it reckons right, yeah, so that's unfortunate. What's basically happening here is that we're at the root scope. The root scope doesn't have a type spec. So yeah, it's going to be returning nothing. I mean, I wonder if, where we had this situation here, current fields in spec, I wonder if you just need to sort of say, I wonder if you need to say that something like that. So if something does it, if it's got a number of fields, then you do the check. I think that seems right. So yeah, if it's a closing brace, then you need to pop the scopes. You just say that, and you just increment the and then, I mean, technically, you then, I mean, you essentially do the go-to, really, is what you kind of do. So that's suspecting an identifier. If token is a closing brace, which is semicolon, where's that closing brace followed by semicolon? Did I just not save this file or something? Right, because we've got this closing brace here. Why is it saying there's a semicolon after it? Alright, so we're getting further. And then here we go, the title list ends. So this is the guy that we needed to handle specially. Let me just kill that guy for now. I know it's a bit harsh, but whatever. So then we've got down to risk file reader. We've got close brace, close brace, close brace, close brace. We've got close brace, close brace. Well, actually, shouldn't we? Got type. So you got project reader. We're also not handling the case when we've come to the end of the scopes, by the way. Risk 5 reader, semicolon, close brace, so that's the 302, 303 close brace, hold on a second, just look at this again. So 296 is reader, And then we've got open brace at 297. This title 298, 300, 301, and then 302, 303. Shouldn't the comment be the 304th? Ah, hang on a minute. We shouldn't be tokenizing comments. We've done this. Ah, that's interesting, isn't it? So this is actually, because if you look, right, there aren't any comments in this list. And also, if you just look at the actual, like the comment ain't in this list. These are all of our tokens, 301, 2, 3, and 4. But this guy seems to think that there's a 305th token. So that was a closing brace. Tell you why, actually. It's because we're incrementing the current index, and we're going back to the start, so I'm not checking it. So it's kind of like, I'm not sure if you're allowed to do this, actually. Okay, you can do that. And then you can do that. Okay. I'm going to remove this go to, because I found some stuff that's just a bit weird. Like, I don't know, you're not allowed to put go tos in certain places, where I kind of thought that, you know, it sort of needed to go in those places, but it just didn't allow me for some reason. But the nice thing about this is that we now see that we're actually getting through the entire file. And you can see that the scopes are kind of nicely laid out. Might just change print scope tree. So we've got print pair. Let's just add in some stuff. So let's make that colour, and let's make the value the colour green. Really? Okay. And then for the print in pair, let's do this guy again. Do that, and then let's print this value in blue. And I'm not sure exactly what this takes. It takes just a string, which is unfortunate. So that's not going to rebuild. I guess the easiest way is just doing it like this. What exactly is this? Maybe print pair. It's going to be one of these guys, isn't it? So it's probably going to be the print pair up here. So make sure that if the ID is even set. Oh yeah, right. We may need to check if the ID is even set. So it's a pair. So key. Bit cheesy, but it kind of does the trick. Also, it might be nice actually if we give these guys some sort of indentation, just so we can see a bit clearer. And also, let's just make an indent function. And then down here, prepare, and then you just sort of say, well, yeah, that's unfortunate. I think, well, yeah, it's not every time you do that. I mean, it's not going to quite represent it exactly as I want, exactly as would be useful, rather. But let's just say that this guy gets it at 0. This guy gets it at 1, and these guys get it at 2. Right? Bit cheesy, but what's the problem? Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Too many arguments to print scope tree. Okay, right. Yeah, fine. So then at least you get a little bit of structure going on there. You want this to have incremented, so you want this project to be nested within this project. Actually, maybe it is just whenever you do print scope tree. Actually, yeah, that maybe is all you need to do, right? So when you come in here, you just increment the indentation. When you get to the end, you decrement it. And you pass the indentation here. Actually, is that literally it? Maybe you want to also increment the indentation for the guys that it contains. I think. Yeah, I think that's roughly what you're after. So it's not perfect. You do sort of end up with superfluous indentation up here for some reason. I guess because it's printing the scope tree, so it's incremented that. I mean, I guess you could start with the indentation at -1. So when you first enter this, it gives it to zero. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter really. It just gives us a bit of the structure. Title suffix is nothing. So yeah, it's good that we're actually getting through the whole file at least. What did I call it? Scope tokens, right? Yeah. So basically, the next thing would have been unrolling this, not unrolling, but sort of just restructuring this so that we don't go to, but we actually just go through the loop. And also, we also need to check on this closing brace if there isn't a parent. We need to if there is no parent, then you need to report a syntax error and return 0. I've not got a, yeah. So this will still run, but basically what that should do is if I do this, we should get the syntax error, and we do. Because I think without that it would have crashed. I guess it is setting parent to be 0. And then it is incrementing past that guy. What happens if I do another one? That crashes, yeah, right. So yeah, you can't get away without actually handling it. And like Jesse was saying yesterday, I do need to actually do proper error messages. we reporting? Oh, we're not checking. That's it, isn't it? We're not setting the field, are we? Setting that field to be set. Current field is in spec. Shouldn't that be returning a field? Yeah, it is supposed to be returning a field. Config type field. Yeah, right. Doing it like that. Well, I mean that'll just I think this should still do the right behavior. Invalid field. Where's something? Yeah, okay, so we are hitting that. Great. Else we need to set the field right. The first one we need to set, so we need to ask it's just like field already set. Okay, so the field is set. So with a bit of luck, so well, we already know, don't we? Don't we already know that we've set the field? Field ID. Actually, maybe you don't need to do that necessarily. You just say this, and if there's no field, so then when you come down here, you know that you've got a field. This guy doesn't have a type spec. That's the problem. Oh, well, that's saying if there's a spec. And field count. So it's a read in scope tokens on line 1397. If field is set and field is singleton. So it's trying to read. It's now failing on 1402. Ah. So field already set title. Federated player template. Interesting. So I haven't done this correctly then. I don't think. We should see that the icon. So there's the field already set icon. That's correct. Now under PayPal. Yeah, this ain't correct at all. So we're in the Sprite Patreon. So we should have Cinera Sprite Patreon and then Cinera Sprite Poo, right? Then we've got the invalid field, investigating this scope. And then we've gone into the PayPal scope. Now, when we come into this PayPal scope, we should have been saying this, right? Now I thought that in dereferencing this, yeah, in fact, this is the case, isn't it? Like you're dereferencing the actual thing. Well, actually, no. I thought that it's like, I thought in dereferencing it, you get a whole new thing. Well, it doesn't seem to be what's happening. It sort of seems like what I need to do is I need to essentially set up a new type spec, really. So you push your scope onto the parent. Get type spec finds the thing, so we know which type spec it is. I think really what we need to be doing, we need to get a type spec and then copy that type spec into the actual new dude. I think that's what we would have to do. So you essentially, I think it'd be like this, right? So it's going to take our, God, what's it called? Scope, isn't it? It's a scope tree. I think is it a scope tree or is it a type tree? It is a scope tree. So that, yeah, so it's that. So we're going to be writing into this type spec here. So it takes that, and it's also going to take a spec, right? Bit weird, but that's kind of what I think it is. And then it's just like for int I is equal to the 0. Oh, sorry, spec. You want to be saying push type. Well, it's like I guess first of all you can say the types. I think those things exist, do they? Typespec field. There's all the type field stuff. So what doesn't this like now? It doesn't like that I'm missing the type spec. Oh right, yeah, of course. Yeah, so I've got those member names right. So set typespec. Typespec ID is equal to that. We're going to say that the type. We're going to set that the typespec field count is equal to the specs field count. And then for each of these you want to push field, don't we? Type, what do I call it? Push typespec field. Well, is it even that? I suppose it might be actually. Yeah, I think it is that. And we're pushing this onto is that right? Goes the actual config typespec. That might be right, not sure. But this should be the specs ID. Is that right actually? No, it's not. It's the spec field of that ID. I think that's right. Now, these pushes actually do allocate some memory, so I will need to remember when I free something, probably when I free the scope tree actually, I'll need to remember to actually free all the type specs. Actually, what does free type specs take? It takes a pointer to a type specs. I guess you just say this, and it's like... No, it's not that. Because it's only the one, isn't it? It's just the one of them. Let's just see if this crashes. It doesn't crash. We're not using it, are we? Scope, tokens. So down here, when I do this, right, so that's going to get the type spec, and then we want to be doing set type spec. Or is it just the parent? Okay. So it's a read memory access apparently. On push type spec field. I wonder if I've got a print type spec. I think I have actually, haven't I? Print type spec. So it's a support icon URL. So that makes sense. It's the first time they actually even need to use this function. So the ID is going to be support. So you set the type ID to be this guy. Set the field count to be 2. Icon on URL. Spec field count is going to be 2. So we want to push the spec type spec field. So you want to be saying scope tree type. Let's take it as a pointer to a type spec. It's reading from the 0 page. Config identifier. So the spec field ID. So I would have thought that I would have thought this would be set actually. Oh, hold on a second. Maybe you just have to do. Actually, I first have to do a type spec. But then it's like, well, mean, yes, you probably do need to do that, because if there isn't a type spec set for it, then you can't very well set a type spec. Somebody else's type spec to something that can't be set. Type specs ID. Get config identifier from token. So yeah, that seems to be fine. So we've got the support type spec as expected. So yes, I'm not exactly sure I understand. Why we're getting this read error in here. Like, I'm not sure how that can be the 0 page. Yeah, I don't know. See how we're doing. So it's only me who's live still. I think I might call it a day. I know that we've finishing the stream with like a crash circumstance here, but I think I will call it a day, and yeah, get ready for Handmade Hero. So guess I'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much, heroes and heroines, and farewell for now.